All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving into this really fascinating Harvard study, and honestly, it's going to completely flip the script on how you think about learning.
You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. You're in a lecture, the professor is just so smooth, so polished, everything they say just clicks, and you walk out of that room feeling like a total genius, like you've just effortlessly downloaded all this new information. It feels amazing.
But what if that feeling is lying to you? Seriously, this groundbreaking study out of Harvard suggests that that very sensation, that feeling of learning, might be a totally unreliable indicator of whether you've actually learned a single thing.
So how did they figure this out? Well, this is where it gets really clever. The researchers set up an experiment right inside their own introductory physics courses. They basically created two completely different classrooms, a tale of two classrooms, if you will. But, and this is key, they were teaching the exact same stuff. So in one corner, you've got your classic passive lecture. Just picture it, a brilliant instructor at the front of the room giving this flawless, smooth presentation. Students are just listening, taking notes. Then in the other corner, you have the active learning classroom. Here, students were thrown into groups and had to wrestle with the problems themselves before they ever got the solution from the instructor, a totally different vibe.
Now, this is what makes this study so powerful. They were super careful to make it a fair fight. The students were randomly assigned, they got the exact same content, the same handouts, and get this, every single student experienced both types of teaching, just on different topics. So the only thing that was really different was the teaching method itself. It's a really clean setup.
Okay, so the stage is set. After each class, the researchers did two crucial things. First, they asked the students a simple question. How much do you feel like you learned? And then, they hit them with a surprise test to measure what they actually learned. This is the moment of truth.
And the survey results? Well, they came back pretty much exactly how you'd guess. The students from that smooth, passive lecture, they felt great. They reported a way higher feeling of learning. They felt confident. Meanwhile, the students from the active learning group, not so much. They felt way less sure of themselves.
Okay, so that's the feeling. But here's the million-dollar question, right? Who actually did better on the test? The group that felt smart or the group that felt kind of confused? What do you think?
And boom, here it is, the big reveal. The students in the active learning classroom, the ones who were struggling, the ones who felt frustrated, they absolutely crushed the test. They scored significantly higher. Think about that. They learned way more, even though it felt like they were learning way less.
And just so you know, this wasn't a fluke. They repeated this across different topics with different teachers over multiple semesters, and the result was always the same. There was a clear, consistent, negative correlation. Let me say that again. The better students felt about their learning, the worse they actually performed. It's wild.
So why? I mean, this feels completely backwards, right? What is going on inside our heads that creates this huge gap between what we think we're learning and what we're actually learning?
Well, it comes down to this really interesting idea called cognitive fluency. Basically, when information is presented in a really smooth, polished way, like a great lecture, it's super easy for our brains to process. It just glides right in. And our brain makes a mistake. It confuses that ease of listening with the effectiveness of learning. It's like mistaking a smooth car ride for knowing how to build an engine.
But that active learning classroom, that's the opposite. It's cognitively disfluent. It's messy, it's difficult, you have to really work at it. And because it felt so hard, students thought, wow, this must be bad teaching, or I'm just not getting this. They misinterpreted that mental struggle as a sign of failure, when in reality, it was the sign of real learning happening.
The researchers have a great quote about this. It sounds a little academic, but the idea is actually pretty simple. When you're a beginner at something, you're not a good judge of your own learning. Think about it. The very knowledge you need to solve a problem is the same knowledge you need to even recognize if you're on the right track. Since you don't have it yet, your brain looks for shortcuts, like, hey, that lecture felt easy, so I must have learned a lot. And that shortcut can lead you way off course.
Okay, so this all sounds a little bleak, maybe. But the really great thing about this study is that it doesn't just point out a problem. It actually points us toward the solution. It gives us a whole new framework for thinking about what it means to learn effectively.
And here's the big takeaway. That struggle, that frustrating feeling of being stuck and having to really wrestle with an idea, that is not a sign that something is wrong. In the world of learning, that struggle isn't a bug. It's the most important feature. That's the feeling of your brain actually building new connections. It's the good kind of pain,
So what can teachers do? The paper has some great practical advice. They say, look, just be open with your students about this. Tell them about the science. Explain that when things feel hard, it's not a sign they're failing, it's a sign their brain is working. It's literally a sign of progress.
And guess what? It totally works. One of the instructors in the study took just 20 minutes at the start of the semester to explain all this. The result? A whopping 75% of his students said that little talk made them feel much more positive about the whole active learning thing. Just managing expectations made a huge difference.
But this also points to a much bigger kind of systemic issue, doesn't it? Think about student evaluations of teachers. If students are rating teachers based on how good the lecture felt, are we actually rewarding the most entertaining professors instead of the most effective ones? We might be encouraging the very teaching style that leads to less learning.
So that leaves us with a really important question to ask ourselves, and it goes way beyond the classroom. In any part of your life where you're trying to grow, maybe learning guitar, or a new language, or a new skill for your job, take a second to think about it. Are you choosing the method that feels easy and smooth? Or are you choosing the one that forces you to struggle a bit? Because this research tells us that struggle, well, that's probably where the real magic is happening.